live on Facebook and we will get going. All right. We're here, streaming software. Got that. Should be. All right. Let me see if I can reload us on Facebook and get us going. I appreciate everybody's patience. There we go. I think we are ready. Okay. Go live. All right. Welcome to Health Accelerator. Today, we are going to talk about the principles of behavior modification. I think this is a really hot topic. Behavior modification is the 5th step of the 7-step signature system. And I've been listening to a lot of different topics on, hey, how do I create that lasting behavior change? Because that's how we really get into those new habits. We talk about that a lot. So today we're going to talk about the principles of behavior modification. Okay, but before we do that, let's celebrate our wins. So if you're watching live, give me a hashtag live. I know we're at a different time for the Super Bowl, just in preparation of that. So if you're watching live, go ahead, just drop a hashtag live in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just drop a hashtag replay. Doesn't matter when you get the information, as long as you are getting the information. And so today we're going to talk a lot about that 7-step signature system, right? The step 1 is the opt-in. Then you get the education. Then you have the accountability. Then you have the tracking. Then the 5th step, behavior modification. Track all wins and then give back. And so how are we doing these things on a daily basis? How are these things being applied to the decisions that you make day in and day out, right? We all have goals. And so in order to achieve our goals, we've got to corral the 3 pillars, right? The what we eat, what we think, and what we do. But we have to apply the 7-step signature system. Okay. And so what is our formula for the what we eat part? I want to do that first, go over the reminder, just because I do believe repetition is key. And anytime we are really trying to make those lasting changes, we have to do something more than one time, right? We don't go exercise one time and then all of a sudden we're able to lift every pound that we want to lift. We don't eat one healthy meal and then all of a sudden we're at our goal weight. Okay. Same principle applies to being an athlete or a musician or an artist. You don't do something one time and automatically you're the best ever at it. Okay. It takes practice. Same thing applies really to any type of career, a medical doctor. They practice medicine, right? They're not experts at it. They're more well-versed than you and I are a lot of times, but they practice medicine. And so they're just getting better at it the longer they go. Same thing applies to yoga practice, right? That's why they call it a practice. Okay. So as we get into the what we eat, right? How are we practicing understanding the information? Okay. You've got 20 to 30 grams of protein every single time you eat, 5+ grams of fiber, 5 to 8 grams of fat, 10 to 15 grams of carbohydrates or less per meal. And that's every single time you eat. These are the numbers that you want to look at. Now, the only thing we look at per day necessarily is our net carbohydrates. What are net carbs? Total carbs minus total fiber for the day. And when you are wanting fast weight loss, you want to keep that net carb number to 20 grams or less per day. Okay. And so the more green vegetables you eat, the more fiber you're going to eat. That's where our fiber comes from, is our green vegetables. And maybe you need to add in a fiber supplement. So just kind of look at your numbers, see where you're at on that. But that 20 grams or less of net carbohydrates per day is that fast fat burning zone. Okay. And so, as we talk about behavior modification, we don't change our behavior until we are willing to do so. This is why it's so important to understand the psychology behind making healthier choices, creating healthy habits. Because until we decide that the desire to create change is more appealing than the desire to stay the same, so you can flip that around and say, when it becomes more painful to stay the same than it is to change, that's when that change will happen. And so that's why we talk so much about having that strong why. That why is the pain point. What is that pain point that's driving you to make a change? Okay. And so that's why it's also really hard to motivate somebody to change and keep that motivation going, right? You can continue to do short microbursts of motivation, but that's where that modeling the behavior comes in, right? And it may just click one day for that person. So let's say your best friend or your spouse or whatever is not necessarily always making the healthiest choices. Nagging them about it isn't going to create them to want to change, right? We've all been there. The more somebody tells us that we need to change, a lot of times the more we push back. But when we see someone inspiring, we see someone doing the things we want to do, then we become inspired and we start to feel like, hey, I can do that. But we operate, and there's a Harvard research study that talks about this. We operate under the idea that we are the exception to the rule. So just because I'm not making poor choices, I'm either not going to gain weight or it's not going to affect my health. And we operate believing that we are the exception to the unhealthy habits and what that leads to, what that inflammation and what all that leads to, right? We operate in that. And that is our own ego just protecting us, right? Allowing us to stay in that comfort zone. But once we're able to apply the principles of behavior change and really focus on what is it that I'm wanting to change, right? What is that one small change I want to make? Okay. And then moving through it like that. Okay. The first principle of behavior change is behavior is a product of the environment, right? So we talk a lot about this. If we are constantly in a negative environment or constantly around people with negative, unhealthy habits, we're going to adopt those unhealthy habits, right? If we are constantly going out to dinner and there's lots of unhealthy choices around, the more likely we are to engage in those unhealthy habits, right? So behavior is a product of the environment. And so that might be something simple you can change. Look at what environment are you in? What environment are you constantly putting yourself in? And what does that look like, right? Where are the choices that you're making and how does that align with the environment you're in? Okay? And then maybe you need to change the environment. And sometimes that's harder than others, but that's sometimes we can quickly manipulate the environments that we're spending a lot of time in to really help us get over that hump, right? Okay. The next one, consequences can either strengthen or weaken a behavior. And a consequence is simply what comes after a behavior strengthens or weakens it. What comes immediately after. Okay. And so here's the thing. The reason we are so addicted to sugar sometimes is because the consequence right after, man, that tasted really good. Man, that felt good. That was really great. It gave me that hit, right? It gave my brain that hit that I wanted. And so we're more likely to engage in that in the future unless we can recognize that, hey, while yes, it tasted really good in the moment, I don't like what it's doing long term. And then you're able to change the environment. So you see how these kind of stack up on each other. Okay. So when you're constantly engaging in these things, but and then on the flip side, what happens directly after you work out? Typically you feel good. And so you're more likely to do it again in the future. Now, when you wake up the next day and you're sore, that's where you have to go back to, okay, but it's going to help me get to my goal, right? That's why that why has to keep you going through the painful parts of it. Okay. In the long run, behavior responds better to positive consequences. And consequences can be positive or negative, right? You show up to work, you get a paycheck. That's a positive consequence. You don't show up to work, you don't get a paycheck. It's the negative consequence. Okay. So behavior responds better to positive consequences. That's why when we talk about behavior that receives attention is behavior that's repeated. You want to give a lot of positive attention to the things that are going right. And what you don't want to do is give a ton of attention or a ton of focus to what's going wrong or what maybe wasn't quite on plan. Okay. That's what's really important. Behavior that receives attention is behavior that's repeated. And so that's why I say go back in your food log and highlight everything that went right that day once you fill it out. Highlight it because you're giving it more attention. You're giving the right things more attention. And so it's more likely to be repeated. Okay. Just like, I don't know if any of you have an Apple Watch, but if you follow your friends on there, a lot of times it'll pop up with a notification, so and so completed a workout. And you can go in. This is a really cool behavior strategy within Apple. You go in, you can click on where they finished a workout, and you can send them like a little fire emoji or a little, all kinds of stuff. You can respond to them finishing a workout. And how motivating is that? That maybe somebody you don't even talk to all that much, but you're following each other on your Apple Watch, and you just click the send the little fire emojis. I do that to my best friend all the time. We don't talk a whole lot because we both are just so busy. We are, we're intentional about making time to spend time together, but in between those times, we don't talk a whole lot. We don't text every day. She's, we both have lives. But it'll pop up and say Lindsay finished a workout. And so I'll just send her little heart emojis or fire emojis. And it's just something that's motivating. It keeps her going. All right. So these are little things. Behavior that receives attention is behavior that's repeated. All right. The next one, it takes time for changes in the environment to change behavior. It takes time. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Right. Again, that's that, hey, I ate one salad or one meal that was on plan and I'm expecting now to be at my goal weight. And I know none of us think like that, but when we don't get those immediate results like we're wanting, we get frustrated. But again, that's where you go back and apply the behavior that receives attention as behavior that's repeated. If you're engaging in these healthy habits and these habit changes, you're going to get to where you want to be, right? It's just a matter of time. And so that's why it's so important to focus on, hey, how am I creating new healthy habits? What are the habits that I'm creating? What am I doing to get there, right? I'm opting in. I'm getting the education about it. I'm holding myself accountable to it. I'm tracking it, right? This is how we create new habits. And then you got track all wins. That's just behavior that receives attention is behavior that's repeated. So you see how all of these show up in our 7-step signature system. All right. And then this is the coolest principle of them all, I believe. So I believe that the last part, I believe this is the coolest one because this is the one that allows us to make the changes and manipulate, right? So past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. Okay. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. What that means is we can use that to our advantage. The more often something happened in the past, the more likely we are to do it again in the future. Okay. So if I did something every single day, one day, then or what for 1 month, every single day for 1 month, chances are I'm probably going to do it again the next day. Okay. That's habit. But what works to our advantage of that is we can assess, hey, what happened? What did I do every single day this last month? Or what did I do a lot this last month that did not allow me to move myself toward my goals? Okay. So, what did I do that didn't allow me to move myself toward my goals? And then I can get ahead of that. I can use behavior as a product of the environment. I can change the environment that caused me to engage in that behavior. Okay. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior, is the most powerful tool that we have because we can identify what is most likely to happen again and we can get ahead of it and make a plan for it not to happen again. Okay. And so these are things that we can easily correct, right? It is simple to figure out, okay, where am I at? Where am I going? What changes do I need to make? All right? So these principles of behavior are incredibly powerful to have in our tool belt because this allows us to manipulate simple things that allow us to set ourselves up for success. Okay. So again, behavior is a product of the environment. So assess your environment, see where you're at. What are some immediate things you can change? Maybe you need to get some foods out of the house. Maybe you need to adjust who you're spending time with. Maybe you need to adjust where you're where you're eating your meals, or where these simple adjustments, right? Behavior is a product of the environment. All right. Consequences strengthen or weaken a behavior. So, what comes directly after a behavior either strengthens or weakens it. Okay. So, write down a win when you eat something that's on plan. Write it down as a win. Track that win. Okay. So, then in the long run, behavior responds better to positive consequences. Behavior that receives attention is behavior that's repeated. Give yourself lots of credit. Don't skip step 6 of the 7-step signature system, which is track all wins. These are the things that are going to allow us to really dive in and be wildly successful because we're giving lots of attention to the things that are going right. And we're not ignoring the things that didn't go right, but we're simply making a quick change. Okay. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. Don't expect to have all the results overnight. And again, everyone here does a really nice job of not expecting that. Right. But it's also not going to be a linear process. If you look back at the 8 months and 3 days that it took me to lose that 1 pound 113 times, it was like this. It was like little steps here and spikes, and it happens, right? Our body is adjusting. We're building muscle, we're burning fat. We are readjusting to how our body functions, right? So it's going to be some ups and downs, but as long as it's trending down, that's what we're wanting, or trending up if you're trying to build your muscle and build that part, whatever your goals are. Okay? So behavior takes time. Okay? And then again, the most powerful, past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. Okay? The more often something has happened in the past, the more likely it is to occur in the future unless something in the environment changes. So that last part is key, unless something in the environment changes. Okay? And that is simply behavior science 101. Okay, those are the 5 principles of behavior. And so that's how you can use those to your advantage to really start to make the progress or continue to make the progress you want to make. Okay, so take those principles of behavior, identify what are the bad habits that you have, and then simply change the environment to get to where you want to be. Okay, not always easy, but it is simple. We make those small, simple changes over time, and we're able to really make significant progress because we're making these little changes. That's that atomic habits for success. We talk about that all the time. We get 1% better, right? We do the things that we don't necessarily always want to do. But again, that goes back to having that strong why. Because when it is more painful to stay in the position you're in than it is to make the change, that's when you will start to make the change. Okay, for me, I was uncomfortable all the time. My feet hurt all the time. My numbers for my labs were they were just creeping up. And we didn't like that. And so it was more uncomfortable for me to stay doing what I was doing than it was to make a change. And so then it was a lot easier. Now I just went to the doctor the other day and he's like, oh, yeah, when I order labs for your appointment next year, do I need to order sugar labs? Do I need to check your A1C? And he goes, oh, no. He's like, you're fine. He's like, your sugar's never high. And it's not. It never is, whether I'm fasting or not fasting. It's not high because I've made these simple changes over time. Okay. And so these are these habits that we build in. These are the principles we apply to create those lasting habit changes that we want to see that are going to lead us to that healthier lifestyle. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to go over the principles one more time, so jot them down if you need to. So behavior is a product of the environment. What comes after a behavior strengthens or weakens it. In the long run, behavior responds better to positive consequences, so track all your wins. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And then past behaviors are the best predictors of future behaviors. So your action items moving forward into next week, and you've got a bonus few hours because we did class early today. All right. So step 1, I want you to identify the environment that you spend the most time in. And I want you to acknowledge, is it conducive to the changes you're wanting to make? If it is, amazing. If it's not, what is something you can do to make it more conducive to the changes you want to make? All right. I want you to track all of your wins. And then the last one, I want you to identify the behavior that maybe you're engaging in that's holding you back from maybe making as much progress as you want to make. So identify what is that past behavior that you're doing that's not allowing you to make the most progress you possibly want to make to move yourself forward. And then what's something you can replace that behavior with that's going to serve the same purpose. Okay. Next week, we'll talk about that, right? We will talk about replacing those negative habits because that's the biggest thing. You can identify the bad habits all you want, but you have to replace them with something, right? You have to replace them with something that's equally or more satisfying and reinforcing. Okay. So replacement behaviors we will talk about next week. Okay. But just identify some things that, let's say you're watching too much TV and skipping your workout, right? There's nothing wrong with watching TV, but if you're doing that instead of your workout, what can you do to replace that? Okay. And we'll talk more about some strategies for those types of things next week. All right. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of the day. If you're watching live again, thank you for being here. I know a lot of people had to catch the replay. All good as long as you are getting the information. All right. I am so proud of each and every one of you for showing up and getting the information, getting the education to further your progress towards your goals. All right. So I will see you back here. I do believe my new computer has solved our connection issues. So hopefully we will not have any more connection issues moving forward. I appreciate everyone's patience while I got that worked out with the internet and the new computer. And I will see everybody back here 7 p.m. next Sunday. And until then, I'll see you in the Facebook group, or if you're in a coaching program, I will see you on text message and phone calls. And as always, if you are needing to get back into a coaching program, please reach out and we will see what makes the most sense. All right. Have a fantastic day, everyone. And I will see you back here 7 p.m. next Sunday. Bye, everyone.